in the sitecore.analytics.config file. What are some other things you can do with the analytics configuration? Well, you can subscribe to events so that when these events occur, you can create a piece of code that will run. So for example, if I get a request for a media item, such as a PDF file or a video, I can act on this using my media request event handler. Of course, I can also, as a developer, build my own handlers into here as well and simply put it into the pipeline. You can also run scheduled tasks, including maintenance plans, cleanups, exports, etc. So for example, if you've used the Sitecore Analytics application before and you subscribe to different reports, this is the subscription task that will run through every 15 minutes and make sure that it emails out all the reports to people who have subscribed for them. Of course, if you want to add new tasks within here, here's where you would do it, within the sitecore.analytics.config file. Before we go on to the real technical stuff, I just want to give a quick reference reminder to all the different buzzwords we use within the online marketing suite. So, a profile score. Scores are built up during a user session or multiple sessions that define what the user is interested in. So, some examples include IT, cars, or developing source code. Conditions. Conditions are logic that determines if something has been met or not. So, for example, if a user is logged in. An action. An action is a process that is run. For example, running a piece of code or changing the position of a control on my website. A conditional rendering rule is a combination of one or more conditions and one or more actions. The Marketing Center. The Marketing Center is where we create all our marketing strategies. So for example, this is where we set up goals, new page events, new profiles, and new conditional rendering rules. This is also where we can set up multivariate tests as well. Sitecore Analytics. Sitecore Analytics is the application where all our reports are run from that allow us to view the conversion rates of all the marketing strategies that we have defined within the Marketing Center. Page events. An event that occurs on a page. For example, file download, or watching a video, or an error or a broken link. MaxMind. MaxMind is the service that Sitecore uses out of the box to process a GeoIP lookup based off the user's IP. So, how do we create a new condition? Well, first of all, we have to specify a new class within our Visual Studio project, and we have to make a couple of choices. First of all, what type of condition do I need to inherit from? So, if I'm creating a brand new condition, and I want to compare between strong data types, I can use the operator condition. If I want to implement a Boolean condition, I make sure that I inherit from the when condition. If I want to compare string values, I want to make sure that I inherit from the string operator condition. So for an example, just say I want to create a rule that checks for the logged in username and making sure that it's Sitecore admin. How do I do this? Well, first of all, I create a class, and seeing that we're going to do and implement a Boolean condition, I have to make sure that I inherit from the when condition. So all I have to do now is overwrite the execute method and put my particular pieces of code in between that method. Next, I have to point a new content item that I create to that particular piece of code. So when I put this condition into my conditional rendering rules, I know what piece of code it's going to run. So all we need to do is create a rule condition item under the Settings, Rules, Conditions folder. Next, I have to create my class with all my code in it. And then all I have to do is create a new conditional rendering rule within my Marketing Center, and I'll be able to now use my new condition that I've created. So, how about filling out the new conditional item that we've created? Sitecore uses the value of the text field, which is in the data section of a conditional definition item in the user interface that allows users to select conditions and enter condition parameters. So, Sitecore replaces the text field and the specific tokens that you define with features that allow users to specify parameters for the condition. So, Sitecore adds links around the words if, when, and where. If the user clicks the link, Sitecore reverses the condition, alternating between if and except if, when and except when, or where and except where. Sitecore can also change the Boolean logic of your conditions expressions as well by alternating between and or, so you can concatenate many different conditions together. Tokens are shown in square brackets, enabling links allowing the user to specify parameters. The brackets contain 4 positional parameters separated by commas, which I will go through now. The first parameter is the name of the property that you will pass into your .NET class. The second parameter is pointing to a macro that's stored under the Sitecore, System, Settings, Rules, Common, Macros folder. Basically, it's a predefined functionality, such as showing a user interface so users can select a user or a content item. The next parameter is the URL or the path to where your macro will start within the content tree. So, for example, if we want a user to be able to click on one of the links that we define and it to open up a user interface with the Sitecore content home item selected, all we need to do is pass the following piece of text in to our parameter, root equals /Sitecore/content/home. The final parameter is the actual text that is displayed to the end user. Basically, think of this as the link that they will click for the rest of the process to begin. So, let's look at an example. The where template condition evaluates to true when an item is associated with a specific template. This is what we want to build in our condition. So, what is the piece of text that we define in our content item so we make sure that when a user selects this condition, they get the ability to click on specific and it shows up a dialog box which allows them to select a template? Well, let's remember a couple of things. Let's remember the parameters. The first parameter is the actual field name that we're going to pass through as a parameter to our class. In this case, we want to use the template ID. The next field is the actual macro name. So, this is the macro that exists in our Sitecore tree that points to a piece of code. This piece of code simply opens up an interface within Sitecore that allows users to select something from the content tree. So, we are using the tree macro. All it does is points to this class, Sitecore.rules.ruleMacros.tree macro. If you were to look inside the code of this, all it does is it opens up the interface that you saw before, this little dialog box here, which allows you to select an item. The next parameter is the path to where you want to start within the Sitecore tree or the user dialog box that shows up. And finally, specific, well, that's the text that the user will see and be able to click on when they're defining their new conditional rendering rules. So, how about creating a brand new action? Well, we have conditions and we have actions that are built in. What if we want to build a custom one? To implement a script action, in the content editor, simply select the item under which you store all the other script definition items. Insert a script definition item using the following template: System, Rules, Script. Make sure you name the script something that clearly and concisely indicates what the script does. In the script definition item, in the data section, and in the type field, all you have to do is enter the .NET class signature or enter values for the code, reference, or language fields. So what possibilities does this give me? Basically, it gives developers the ability to, based off inbuilt conditions or custom conditions, you're able to call some piece of code. We can use script actions also to talk to third-party tools. So for example, CRM or Salesforce, based off conditions that are met with the conditional rendering rules. So, how do we create a new action? The term conditional rendering refers to the ability of the Sitecore layout engine to manipulate presentation controls used to service a HTTP request, such as an action of including or excluding a rendering. We could have an action of controlling what placeholder a control goes into. We could also have an action that sets a data source based off conditions, or you might process multivariate conditions, or any other type of logic. So for example, just say we wanted to create an action that would change the value of a field based off conditions that were met. So